Have you got something to open my beer with?
It's a screw cap, so no.
Oh, wait, wrong way. You ruined that bit. Superman, the new Superman Adventures, better known simply as Superman 64, is a piece of shit video game released sometime in the 90s that is widely considered one of the worst pieces of entertainment media ever released. A fact that's not all that surprising when you consider that DC tried and partially succeeded in killing the game in the crib.
So, imagining most people haven't played this atrocity of a game.
The thing is though, that's not true because the game actually sold really well. Because this game was released before the era of hyperbolic, YouTube headlines saying worst game ever made. And I looked it up recently, I didn't believe it, that this game actually turned a profit. And it turned so much of a profit, they were actually planning on porting it to like the PlayStation 1 or something like that. So it's like I said, this is before the days when, the public could find out day one, sometimes before day one of release, that this game sucks ass. So chances are there are a lot of people out there who've actually played this game. But for those who haven't, you basically take control of Superman as you fly around a version of Metropolis that is inexplicably always covered with a thick layer of piss green fog. Right, so do you remember, presumably, you know about this game, so
I know about it.
Do you remember what the explanation is for why Metropolis is always covered in fog?
Isn't it like Lex Luthor's covered this city in some kryptonite chemical fog?
Kryptonite fog, yeah. Well, that's the rumour. Do you know what the actual explanation is? There isn't one.
Oh!
Yeah, the kryptonite fog thing was a joke said by a developer when they were asked by someone, why does this game look like you've got a piss filter on it? And they joked, no, it's kryptonite fog. In-game, there's no explanation for what that is. It's just, apparently, Metropolis is just constantly covered in just green fart gas. This video game has consistently topped worst video game lists and is considered one of the worst pieces of entertainment media ever put out by a company.
So, who the fuck made this game?
But Superman 64, it was made by a company called Titus Interactive, who are admittedly a relatively small studio, and a lot of people wonder why did such a small studio then be given such a massive IP, the Superman IP, and the story goes that nobody else wanted it, because at the time they didn't think a Superman game would be popular. And apparently behind the scenes, initially Titus Interactive were dealing with DC and they were very amenable to all of their needs, their wants, their requests for information and stuff they can use with characters and that sort of thing, until I think the marketing department or something, or the department they were interacting with, basically all got fired and then replaced.
Oh.
And this marketing department thought, do you know who would make a better game? And this will date when this was made, EA. That's a game company who makes really good games that people always love. Let's get them in. And apparently what this new marketing team did is basically try to just kneecap the project at every opportunity to get Titus Interactive to just give up.
Oh, right.
And they heroically struggled on and ended up making the piece of shit we all know and love today.
So they were basically trying to make them stop producing this game?
Yes, so we can then go sell it to EA, who never make bad games or get any bad press. EA. EA. What's the last thing EA did that was actually good? That isn't another company that they bought and then killed.
Yeah.
That they did. Is it EA big? Have they topped EA? Have they topped Burnout yet? Has Burnout been topped?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, Burnout Revenge. Has Burnout Revenge been topped?
I don't think it has.
Because Burnout Paradise was just all right.
I reckon if Burnout Revenge was released alongside Citizen Kane, that'd be the thing we use, the gauge of quality. So I reckon if Orson Welles would have played Burnout Revenge, he would have just given up. He would just be he's media cannot transcend this, I'm done. Fuck that Citizen Kane bollocks, this is it.
So you say that they tried to just run this game into the ground?
Yes, kill it in the crib, kneecap it at every opportunity.
How did they manage that?
Well, according to the lead director of Superman 64, a guy called Eric Kane, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, he said, essentially they just stopped talking to us and they made everything just this laborious, torturous process that made us want to shoot ourselves. Because they dragged, DC, according to him, dragged their heels on everything that they wanted to get cleared, to the point it became very clear that DC were doing this deliberately to annoy them, presumably to get them to stop making the game, which they didn't, and the result was Superman 64.
So have you got any more specific examples of like how they tried to just cane this project?
Perhaps the best example is the fact that DC insisted that Titus Interactive got everything cleared. They made them, somewhat ironically, considering what you've spent most of Superman 64 doing, jump through a lot of hoops to get anything cleared for the game. For example, it took them months to get DC to sign off on a scene where Superman flies underwater, because DC said it will affect the legacy of Superman, and if you want to put this in your game, you have to provide us with a comic panel showing that Superman can swim. So they then had to spend like countless man hours trawling through the comics. Bear in mind, this is before the days of the internet.
Well, you could just Google search it and find the image.
Yeah, you can do, like, well, presumably there's an image of Superman swimming right behind me right now, which took all of 5 minutes to find. But no, they spent weeks finding a specific comic panel showing that a man who can fly into space and exist there can swim. And then send that to DC, who then went, okay, I guess you can include that scene of Superman swimming. And now imagine that for every possible interaction Superman was going to have. And then you have a rough idea of just how annoying it was to produce this game. Another one that is quite funny is that DC thought the idea of a Superman action game wasn't very good, and instead heavily encouraged Titus Interactive to pursue the idea of a sim management game where you played as Mayor Superman and you had to manage Metropolis that way.
What?
Which Titus Interactive said no, because that's shit, but they still had to deal with DC trying to get them to do that.
I would have been, as Titus, gone, find me the comic panel of Mayor Superman.
And they'd probably write it, they were being that petty, but that reminds me though of actually a really good mechanic from a very bad game. I think it's like Superman Returns, where in that game, you're playing as Superman. Like, Superman can't die, Superman doesn't have a life bar, but the city does. In the game, the city has a life bar, but Superman doesn't. The game's terrible, but I always like that idea. So it was like, it's not without precedent, but DC weren't thinking of it. They was like, no, make the game sound as boring as possible so the company, like, backs off and we can sell it to EA. EA, folks. Right, moving swiftly on, another thing that DC didn't like is the fact that in the game, it's an action game, Superman punches people. So they said, well, we can't have a video game of Superman punching people, even though that's basically all Superman does in the comics. So if you want to make this game, Superman is not allowed to harm a human being. I should point out that DC said this when they knew full well that the entirety of the game revolved around punching people as Superman. So what Titus had to do is rewrite the game's storyline and say that you're not actually in Metropolis, you are in a digital recreation of it created by Lex Luthor. So they could say that everybody you're punching is just a digital construct, and therefore Superman is not actually hurting a human being. This is where it gets just a little bit more hilarious, because Titus spent months and months and months creating a new physics engine for the game that allowed Superman to rip parts of the environment off and use them as weapons. So he could pick up cars, he could go up to a wall, pull off a piece of the wall, throw it, use it as a weapon. And after they spent months doing that, DC said, actually, we don't want Superman to be shown destroying the environment. That doesn't gel with our idea of the character, it'll impact his legacy. Even though, as I mentioned, they knew the game was in a digital recreation of Metropolis, so nothing he was doing was actually real, but no, they said that. And I would just like people to keep that in mind, that quote from DC of, do not show Superman destroying us. And Lucas is laughing now because he knows what I'm going to say. And what is it, Lucas?
Oh, like flash forward to Man of Steel, where he destroys the entire city.
Superman doesn't hurt people. General Zod. Gah! Chris Redfield in his way through the world. I still want there to be an edit of that movie where during that entire fight scene, all you can hear is just screaming. Someone needs to make that. Can we do that? Whoever edits this video, can you just go find a disaster movie and get a sound from that of people screaming and just put it over Superman leveling a building? Because that's all you should hear as he does that.
Well, that's one thing I do like about Batman vs Superman is just the opening shot of Batman running through with
What
Superman
the fuck is going
just
on?
fucking up the entire scene.
It's like Superman's firing 9/11s from his eyes. What the fuck is going on here, man? So I personally have shit on, like, the Snyderverse a lot in these videos because it's not very good. But I have a particular distaste for the specific hashtag of release the Snyder Cut. Because I'm not sure if you were aware of this, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter at all, but the only tweets I've ever sent, ever, in my history on social media that I've had to mute is one criticising Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman and Justice League because people with hashtag release the Snyder Cut in their names and their bios would not stop responding to it and calling me, and it got so annoying because it was happening every 5 minutes. And I checked and I found a suitably dark and depressing corner of the internet where there are people out there who insist that there is a Snyder Cut out there that will save Justice League. We're going to get, both of us right now, Lucas, you're going to get angry tweets about this because people insist that this exists and it's better. Did you see when Comic-Con happened where fans of Zack Snyder got a billboard erected with hashtag release the Snyder Cut on it? It's a curio for me at this point in time. Where it's just of all the things to attach your ego and personality to, it's this.
Is that a shit movie potentially will be made more
palatable?
I know it's going to be more shit,
or at least
but
more
in their head more palatable.
Yeah, or at the very least more consistent with the universe as it was established previously. I can get it from that, but it's so baffling to me just how like I said, it's the only tweet I've ever sent where I had to mute it because I was every 5 minutes another person with, and I'm not making this up, Batman versus Superman as their fucking avatar.
Oh, yeah.
It was like their bio was fan of movies, Zack Snyder is a god.
God.
Best movies are Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel, Marvel is trash. It's like, is this Martin Scorsese? Fucking hell, what's going on? We had to do it.
Yeah, we did.
It's like, oh man, it's like we can't, these, Marvel fans aren't much better. I remember that one.
To be fair,
the guy who directed Godfather says Marvel movies aren't as good as Godfather. What the fuck does he know? Well,
Martin Scorsese said he doesn't like Marvel films. He might love Batman vs Superman.
Can you imagine that?
He might be a release the Snyder Cut guy.
Can you imagine that? It's like there's a new quote. We managed to track down Martin Scorsese at some random function, and he had one quote about this, and it was hashtag release the Snyder Cut. Oh my god, that'd be it. That'd be game over. That's like the world implodes right there. So as much as I like to shit on it, I will give props to the hashtag release the Snyder Cut people for being huge advocates for just teaching film literacy in school.
Yeah.
Because one of my favourite things about it is people saying, oh yeah, you just don't get the movie. You don't get the symbolism. And then you put in a clip right now of Superman being told, you're the only one who can save us all. And it's his face, and then Jesus' face is in the background because he's in church.
There's a chance I can save Earth by turning myself in.
Or the part where he goes into space and he does the cross.
Or the bit where he comes down to save the family in the flood.
And now we learn that we're not even special in the entire universe because there is Superman. There he is.
And then you get people on Twitter telling me I don't understand symbolism, or I can't see Zack Snyder's vision. It's like anyone can. It's not hard. The symbolism is not dense here. It's that's all the one props I'll give it off. You are a reason I think film literature should be taught in school, so people don't seem that fucking stupid. I think there was an article out there, and I hope to God it's not genuine, because it's depressing if it is, where it's something like, oh yeah, symbolism, it's like movies with symbolism you may have missed. And one of the things is, the Jesus allegories in Superman. It's like, what? He stands in church next to Jesus.
Oh,
it's like, oh God,
he
man.
ascends from the heaven to save a family.
From a flood.
Yeah.
It's so obvious. It's, oh my God, it's so bad. Marvel movies, they're cheesy popcorn flicks, but at the same time, they're not pretending to be high art. And if they did, I'd find them just as, distasteful, because that's what gets me about it. The idea, it's dark and it's depressing, so therefore it's good because it means it's deep and it has meaning to it. It doesn't. It's a tights and cape flick. Just because he drowns in a pit of skull. That's the fuck it. I'm done.